Welcome to Hip Hop Movie Club, the show that harmonizes the rhythm of hip hop with the magic of movies. Today we're discussing the 2014 documentary entitled Nas, Time Is Illmatic. We're three old heads who put their old heads together to vibe on these films for you. I'm Dino Wright, podcaster, filmmaker, longtime hip hop fan, and Nas's 2008 album Untitled still really resonates with me. I think it's one of the best album covers of that year.
I'm JB, 80s and 90s nostalgia junkie, longtime hip hop fan, and I admit that I slept on Nas's impact and legacy for far too long. I am much wiser now.
Boogie, a DJ, longtime hip hop fan, and one of the guys we're going to talk about is MC Search. And not only did I go to a live taping of MC Search's talk show, but I also got some camera time with him.
Nice. This episode will answer the question, what was the impact of the album Illmatic? Please hit that subscribe button down below so you won't miss an episode.
In Time Is Illmatic, rapper Nas charts the journey leading up to the recording of his debut album, Illmatic, discussing the influence of his parents and his youth spent in housing projects.
We will be sharing our thoughts on this documentary at the Nas Time Is Illmatic screening at the Colonial Theatre in Phoenixville, PA on February 22nd at 7 p.m. This is part of their Celebrating Black Artists film series. Shout out to DJ AJ Santini. He'll be spinning rap and R&B hits from 6 to 7 p.m., so come out early for that. Tickets for this is at the Colonial Theatre with an RE.com. And here are 5 takeaways about Nas Time Is Illmatic. Number 1. Nas's rise from poet to icon. Time Is Illmatic traces Nas's journey from growing up in Queensbridge to becoming a top-tier lyricist. Number 2, the cultural impact of Illmatic. The documentary emphasizes how Illmatic became a cornerstone of hip-hop, capturing the struggles of urban life and influencing generations of artists with its raw, authentic narrative. And number 3, the production mastery behind Illmatic. Producers like DJ Premier, Pete Rock, and Q-Tip played a pivotal role in shaping the album's iconic sound, blending sample-based beats with Nas's sharp lyricism to create a timeless hip-hop masterpiece. Number 4, legacy and influence on future artists. Illmatic inspired a wave of future hip-hop stars. Number 5, Nas's personal struggles and reflection. So beyond the music, the film explores Nas's internal battles with fame, family, and expectations, offering a deeper look at the man behind the music and his evolving legacy.
Right on. So let's talk about first takeaway, Nas's rise from poet to icon. You know, from a young child in Queensbridge, growing up in the projects, he had a rough and tumble upbringing, dropping out of school in 8th grade, but boy, did he ever make it big. Boogie, you want to talk about his rise to fame?
Absolutely. So, yeah, Nas had a very strong support system. He had a lot of love and support from both his parents, despite growing up in the Queensbridge housing projects, which are the largest housing projects in the NYC. But yeah, his father, Oludara, was a well-accomplished musician from a family of musicians from Natchez, Mississippi. And he provided a good cornerstone of knowledge for Nas and his brother, Jungle, by having instruments readily available, letting them have a full-on library of all kinds of books that they could read on various topics and subjects. And, being able to have a nurturing mother and father in that household provided them with that strong foundation. Despite what was going on outside, they had a sanctuary protection in the home. And because they were able to express themselves in the household, Nas, had a strong admiration for writing lyrics. And at an early age, he would write these lyrics down and just kind of talk about what he saw in the area or whatever, bouncing them off of his brother. And his brother would critique these lyrics, and Nas would go right back and rewrite them and make them stronger. So he knew that his brother, Jungle, even said that at a young age. They said, yo, my brother's writing stuff that I've never heard anybody say. He's so young. And you can even hear it in his flow and his delivery that the words were well thought out. And he put a lot of intent into what he was saying, and he painted a very vivid picture of what he was trying to get across. So, that got a lot of attention in the neighborhood, and, he was able to get a lot of attention and exposure because he had these lyrics, and he got the attention of the large professor from the group Main Source, and, brought him down to the studio and let him go in that studio, and everybody said, wow, this is what we got right here. And they said, I remember that they were saying that, everybody was just talking and talking and talking and talking. And he said, Large Professor just told him to go in the studio. And he put some beats on. And he said, as soon as Nas opened his mouth and started rapping, the whole room went silent. I was like, man, this kid is talking like that. But, that Live at the Barbecue cameo made him a commodity. And people were like, the song is tight, but who was that kid? Because he's not only did he have a strong cameo, but he started off the song. And everybody was like, wow. And the stuff that came out of his mouth got a lot of attention. Fortunately, MC Search was able to get a hold of him and had some connections with Faith Newman out where Arista and said, hey, I got this kid over here, and not only do I know who he is, and that but I got some demos, and they made a connection and put him on. That like you said, that those strong influence in knowing what was going on in the neighborhood and trying to survive, and deal with the teachers in school that he knew didn't really care for him, and still trying to, remain positive and strong. But it all came out in his lyrics.
A great breakdown, Boogie, as usual.
Thank you.
It takes a special talent to come out of the projects. As we saw, so many people didn't make it out. They were jailed. They got caught up in the crack epidemic. Very few make it out. That support system, like you said, his father says, the school system's failing you. Drop out. Learn a craft. Boy, did he ever learn a craft. Take it to
that was a gamble right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. As I said, it could easily have been him. That was, another statistic, unfortunately. But he made it. And the pride of Queensbridge.
He made this album at age 20. I can't imagine many people making a masterpiece, a career-defining masterpiece at the age of 20. And they say you have your whole life to make your first album, but it was only 20 years. So he did a lot in not much time. And wow, it's a great album. One of the best albums ever, best rap albums, best hip hop albums ever. And the circumstances that it came from are so daunting that it just makes it that much more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when I was going back to listen to it, I marveled again. It's only 37 to 39 minutes, but what a masterpiece. You mentioned no skips. It's just hit after hit after hit. And the lyricism and the detail of the dangers of the streets and the rawness of it over the melodies was just masterful.
It's literally tight. You can point to a lot of albums, and especially from that era, that had a lot of skits in it, and you might say it was a little indulgent of these artistic visions that they've gone off on these small tangents. Every other album track, but this one was tight as a drum.
Yeah,
it was in and out, and it packed a punch in the 37 minutes.
Yeah. I think that's a good lead into our next takeaway, which was the cultural impact of Illmatic. I mean, before this, nobody really captured the struggles of urban life and the rawness and authenticity. It became a cornerstone of hip hop and influenced so many people, which we'll talk about. And again, what shaped him in addition to just the rough and tumble upbringing, his good friend Will Graham was killed, and that really inspired Nas, and he just kind of went on a writing spree and was even more determined to make it big.
Yeah, Ill Will, as Nas, I mean, everyone knew him. They used to make music together. Had dreams of aspirations of making it together, and it's like his right hand man was taken down. So he said, "You know what? I got to push forward." And it was unfortunate because not only did he get murdered, but in the same neighborhood that he had to go back and live in. So it's like you got that constant reminder, walking past the same exact spot day in and day out. That fueled his fire. Definitely lit a fire under him, and it kept going. Yeah,
that's some severe trauma, like a PTSD. And I remember his brother Jungle was saying, "I would have moved. Why didn't we move? We should have just moved out of here." But they just fought through.
Yeah. Yep. Jungle said it. He even said it. Having to live through that experience and not moving kind of messed him up a little bit. They were able to push on, but he said in the back of his mind, it messed him up a little bit. It made him a little crazy in a sense.
It's already daunting and difficult just physically to live in the projects, but to have it psychologically almost abusive.
Yeah.
Wait, that's really hard to do. And to make an album this beautiful and this fantastic it's almost underrated.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But yeah, I remember the first time listening to this album, and I was mind blown, absolutely mind blown. And to this day, like we said, those skips, like I listen to it, and it's like I could just nod my head through the whole thing, just like wow. I mean, it's gritty, it's melodic, and it's grimy, but it still offers a glimpse of hope in making it out. But it paints a very vivid picture, of what it's like in different scenarios, how having to be the ones who make it while your friends are no longer with us, or for various reasons, either they're dead or they're in jail, and the impacts of that and how it affects everyone. I mean, it was just very, very well written. I mean, and then they mentioned in the documentaries too, is that this album brought Queensbridge back. There was the 80s battles between the Bronx and Queens and who created hip hop. And they mentioned how when, the bridge came out, it brought pride to the neighborhood, and then the Bronx came through and ran it over with a truck. It was a little back and forth, but then the Bronx was like, nah, it's over. It's over. Literally, the bridge is over. It's a wrap.
And Shan and KRS-One.
I remember those days, man. Oh man, that was so good. That was some good hip hop. We talk about rap beefs now, but that was great stuff. It put out some hits. But Nas he even brought a battle cry, with represent. This album is great.
And it's different than albums. Like a lot of albums talk about urban issues. A lot of albums talk about the struggles of people of color, but he did it differently. I think you felt like you were there in a lot of ways, and in ways that gangster rap almost like West Coast gangster rap isn't that accessible. Like you really kind of have to be in that environment in like Compton. I guess I've never been to Compton, but to really feel like you understand what's going on there, you kind of have to be there. But like, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm closer to New York than LA that like you can really kind of relate to. Like I've driven past Queensbridge. Like you kind of can get it, and you get it through this music. And it's like, even the KRS-One stuff. Like yes, he talks about the environment, but there's something different about Illmatic, that it was a different voice and a different portrayal of what's going on. So it really is a cultural cornerstone.
Yeah, another legend from Queensbridge. As we mentioned, we did the documentary on Roxanne. So Roxanne Shante and Marley Marl. Marley Marl was living in the same projects, always spinning out of his window and everybody catching the beats, and that inspired Nas. And and Roxanne Shante took an interest in Little Nasir when he was preteen, and he was spitting his lyrics, and she was like, "You got to work on your craft," and all these things, galvanized him, and it all crystallized into just a masterful album and career for Nas.
Yeah, crystallization is the word. Yeah.
I also remember, like to this day, like I that The World Is Yours. I remember the first time hearing it, and I knew exactly where it was from because I wasn't supposed to be watching it at the time, but I was a huge fan of Scarface because my older cousins used to watch it, and I used to sneak in and watch it with them. So I knew exactly where The World Is Yours came from. And I remember many years later, I used to have the pendant, and it said "The World Is Yours" in a ring.
I remember
and in the center of the ring had a globe that rotated. Yes. Yeah, and it had the planets on it. I was mostly due to that song and my affinity for it, and how Scarface influenced that song. Yeah, it just every time I think about it, I'm like, man, that was such a great song.
Really was. It was featured in this film as well, definitely. Yeah, and then let's talk about takeaway 3, the mastery of production behind Illmatic. Legendary producers and performers like DJ Premier, Pete Rock, and Q-Tip. it's combining with Nas's lyricism to create a masterpiece, as we said.
Yeah, he has some legendary juggernauts in production. Some of the when you talk about top-notch hip-hop production or just production in general, like these three names are always mentioned. You know, DJ Premier, best known as the DJ / producer for Gangstar, with Guru. You know, Pete Rock of Pete Rock and CL Smooth fame, and also as an MC of his own right. Q-Tip, you know, we all love Q-Tip, but a lot of people didn't realize that besides for being a great lyricist, that Q-Tip is a masterful producer. You know, our listeners, Q-Tip is a masterful producer, not just a lyricist. Us old heads know he's a producer. You young guys understand that Q-Tip not only raps, but he puts some of those beats that we all love. He made those beats, man. He did some of those, you know, some work for Nas on his album. So he had some juggernauts. You know, I don't say that lightly at all. New York State of Mind, Life's a Bee, The World Is Yours, One Love, some of the best production. You know, Nas's flow over those beats is just so melodic. He just kind of rides the beats in every crevice of the beats, and it's just like, wow.
Yeah, mad skills.
Yes.
Yeah. And you mentioned Large Professor as well, the main source that discovered him and helped him. He had heard from, was connected to Large Professor, I think you said, through MC Search. And it was like, Large Professor had worked with Eric B. and Rakim and Cool G Rap, and it all came together. What I like also is his dad, Oludara, being a musician, and he has his horn is a sample on the Life's a Bee song. Because it says actually featuring Oludara when you see that song.
Mm-hmm.
That was a nice touch.
Yeah. And it was crazy because I remember at a young age not realizing that's who he was, and didn't realize that he was actually a musician himself until I heard him many years later on some of Nas's older work. And he featured him on some of his older work. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Nas's dad is on some of the songs. And then I went back and realized, I'm like, oh, wow, he was on the first one. He was there from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty cool, you know. Have your dad playing an instrument on your album, your classic album.
Yeah, and then takeaway number 4 is no surprise that Nas had a lasting legacy, leaves a lasting legacy and large influence on future artists, huge names. So you want to talk a little about some of the huge acts that he has influenced?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll mention some of the artists that are from back then to now. You know, AZ is one of his buddies who's also on his first album. They worked together and collaborated with some other stuff. Some on AZ's album, some on Nas's albums. They formed a firm together. But he mentions that Illmatic is like living a hustler's life through poetry. And I heard that, I was like, wow, that's exactly what it felt like. Because, like I said, just riding over those beats, and even Busta Rhymes has chimed in. Swiss Beats, another hip hop juggernaut of a producer, made some legendary tracks for various artists. Alicia Keys, Erykah Badu. She was so influenced by the album that it helped her get in the right mindset to create her classic R&B soulful masterpiece, Baduism. And J. Cole, another current hip hop lyricist who's got a very similar flow and sense to Nas, and he's very masterful in his writing as well. But yeah, if this documentary was longer, you can probably find artists on both coasts who are heavily influenced by what Nas has put out. Yeah, that's stuff.
K.Dot too.
Oh yeah, K.Dot. Yep, K.Dot. Yeah, absolutely.
Coming off his Super Bowl performance, which was insane. You see Dinah Wright and myself with our Eagles gear, Super Bowl champs, go Birds.
Go Birds.
As we record, go Birds. Actually, I'm likely going to the parade Friday. I was mentioning to you guys. So I'm having my first championship parade. Exciting. And I'm a little hoarse and I lost my voice. And it was because also not only the Super Bowl, but the night before, Dinah Wright and I went back to the three of us, alma mater, Rider basketball. Boogie was sick, so he couldn't make it, but we won a buzzer beater, so we had some good times. I was pumped. It was an amazing sports weekend for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is one heck of a weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
buzzer in the Super Bowl championship back to back.
Yeah.
Pretty good work. Pretty good work.
Good work if you can get it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so influential. It's funny, there's a couple other references that I feel like our work here on the podcast is kind of coming full circle because we keep seeing other works of art that we discussed or other artists, and he mentioned Wild Style as an influence of like, this is like what Wild Style brought, like you can see the streets. And then also Stretch and Bobbito's show was mentioned. There was a clip from 1993, and we talked about that when we covered the All the Streets Are Silent documentary about the marriage of skateboarding and hip hop. So it's kind of cool to see all this stuff coming together. Yeah,
I remember when he referenced Wild Style, he said, he wanted people to have the same feeling that when they watched Wild Style, he wanted them to have that same feeling when they listened to his album. Yep. And that classic clipper from Freestyling with Stretch and Bobbito. Yeah. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
One web of interconnectivity.
Yep. And the album dropped April 19th, 1994. Yep. So over 30 years of Illmatic. Amazing. And the final takeaway talks a little bit more about Nas's personal struggles and reflection. We talked a little bit about this, but just to summarize it again, there's personal struggles of fame, family expectations, coming out of the projects, and I got a kick out of his brother Jungle. He was a character. He was saying junior high was like Rikers Island, and he was cracking me up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing that I remember Olodaro was talking about how when he went to school in the South, it was such a nurturing environment. He said his father went to school in a nurturing environment. He went to school in a nurturing environment, but now his children unfortunately weren't able to have that same experience. He said it was rough, and when Jungle City was called in Rikers Island, I was like, oh man, he just added a little bit of levity to it. I was like, it's like I couldn't even. It's like I'm laughing at it, but I'm like, man, I can't even imagine that. And then Nas was talking about how they try to put him in a slow class, and he said he wondered how life would be had he went to a school, where they nurtured his talents and pushed him to actually pursue an artistic background instead of just trying to write him off. Because we all knew, like you could tell from him talking and from being around his parents that he read books. Like he wasn't unintelligent. Mm-hmm. It was just that they weren't taking an interest in what he took an interest in, and they were pushing their narrative on him, and he wasn't really trying to hear it because he had a background of parents that actually listened to him and nurtured him. So now he's getting a place where he's not feeling that, so he's kind of shutting down.
Yeah, I like the way this film comes kind of full circle. At the end, he goes back to the projects in Queensbridge. And I think it was his brother Jungle that held up the photo. And I think it was a day that they did a video shoot. And it's so sad because, again, so many people in that picture, he's pointing them out. This guy was in jail. This guy died. This guy's fighting a murder case. It looked like 80 to 90% of the people in that photo had fallen on hard times for one reason or another. And he said it could easily have been him. It's a statistic also if it wasn't for hip hop. And I think what you said, Boogie, is like that parental structure and his drive, got him out, and he became the pride of Queensbridge. To the point that you see this Nasir Jones Fellowship at Harvard University now. So yes. There's a hip hop archive at Harvard. So who would have ever thought that this young, precocious preteen, rapping and hardscrabble life would be revered and influencing people at one of the most prestigious universities out there. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, and he even mentioned in one of his rhymes, I can't remember which one it is, he said never, something about never going to Harvard or Yale. And here he is sitting in a room with Dr. Henry Louis Gates, one of the most esteemed, documentary guys. I mean, I watch all his documentaries on PBS. He says, I love him. And he's sitting right next to him, and they're just like chit-chatting and explaining the purpose of the fellowship and how they're going to choose who receives it. And I'm like, man, that's a complete full circle moment right there. You have a school dropout now commanding the attention of one of the most prestigious universities in the world.
Yeah, he referenced Yale in one of his songs because he rhymed it with jail. I remember now.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's ironic. And hey, speaking of Ivy League, we did an event recently at Princeton, Hip Hop Movie Club, all the way live at winter session, doing graffiti lessons and whatnot for students and staff. Shout out to Caddy Mike again and DJ Army.
It's just part of the collective.
Yeah. Speaking of collective, one more thing that, again, full circle for us as well, is he mentions the influence of the Juice Crew as well. So I think he mentioned Craig G by name, who we had interviewed on our podcast as we had done a screening of 8 Mile about his ghostwriting. But of the Juice Crew, like just legendary crew, Marley Marl, MC Shin, Big Daddy Kane, Roxanne Shante, Biz Markie, Master Ace, et cetera, et cetera. So many influences upon Nas. He influenced so many people. It's just it's a wonderful legacy. And I love at the end of the "World Is Yours" outro. That was awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I love the way they filmed that. And when he did "It Ain't Hard to Tell" a cappella, that was tight earlier as well.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
that was nicely done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this. I actually have to research. I completely forgot about Ain't Hard to Tell until you mentioned it. But Michael Jackson let him use that sample. He cleared him for that sample as long as he didn't use any profanity in the lyrics.
I've seen that on social media too. Yeah.
Yeah. That's been going around a lot lately. But yeah, that's one of my favorites too. I love that track, especially because I love the Human Nature track. You can put anything to Human Nature, and I'll be like, yes, you can curse me out. And I'm like, yes. It's so soothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we covered it. And I don't even know. We don't have to even do our ratings on this one because this is just dope. I mean, Nas, Time Is Illmatic. If you want to see the true story of his upbringing, go see it. Talk about his legacy, his struggles. It's all there, and it's not even too lengthy of a film. A little over an hour,
Over
15
an
or
hour.
something like
Yep.
that. Yep. And,
Yeah, very inspirational. Gives you a lot of insight. Yeah, there's a lot of little nuggets of knowledge throughout as well. You definitely get something out of it. Feel inspired, and it'll make you want to go listen to Illmatic if you haven't.
Yeah, really. Go back and check this album out if you haven't.
and also, Main Source Live at the Barbecue, MC Search. Check that out as well. Slipping on the track. Oh, Back to the Grill. Goodness. Back to the Grill. That's another classic track with early Nas on it.
yeah, for sure. I'm thrilled that we're going to be seeing it on the big screen as well. And as we record, it's just like a week and a half away. So that'll be on the 22nd at 7 p.m. at the Colonial Theatre in Phoenixville, as Dinah Wright mentioned as well. Come check it out. Linking up with DJ AJ Santini. And I believe DJ Arm 18, Cap C, part of our collective, will be there as well. Should be a fun evening.
Faux show.
For show.
Hip Hop Movie Club is produced by your HHMCs, JB, Boogie, and Dino Wright. Theme music by Boogie. Join us February 22nd at the Colonial Theatre in Phoenixville, PA for a screening of Time Is Illmatic. Tickets at colonialtheatre.com. As always, check out our live event schedule on our website, hiphopmovieclub.com. Thanks for watching the Hip Hop Movie Club show. Ring the bell so you get notified when we post new content. It's the sound of a power-up for us, so thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more where that came from. Hit that thumbnail, it's about to come on the screen.
And remember, don't hate, activate.
Activate, no Jerry curl.
Soul glow. Oh, man.
Nice.
Come on.